All right. This uh, this week's Torah portion contains in it the weird story of the two sons of Aaron, two holy sons of Aaron, and we talked about that yesterday, and how they rushed into the holy temple, into the Holy of Holies, and they got killed. God killed them, and there's a lot of different interpretations about what happened. But generally speaking, what happened is that they were too holy. They had too much love of God. It was uncontrolled, and God doesn't like that. God doesn't like that. But on the other hand, He does like it. I mean, you have to have love of God. The part of it that doesn't like it, God, is because God wants us to fix up this world. So, Nadav and Avihu, they were the example of holy people. Holy people. They were so holy that they just wanted to be close to God, and they got close to God. But it was on their terms. That was the problem. And it wasn't on God's terms. God wants you to get close to Him on His terms. Yeah, on His terms. But first of all, you also have to get close to God on your terms. You have to love God. It has to be your love. You have to be inspired to love God, etc. But afterwards, you have to forget about loving God on your terms and then start loving God on His terms. And what does God want? That you should take this love, the spiritual ecstasy or involvement, arousal, and to bring this also into the world. That the world should also be fixed up by people like you that love God so much. So that's what they missed. So because they missed this point, they didn't want to come into the world, so they didn't. They got basically what they wanted to. They left the world and they were clinging to God. Something like this is not that far away from this whole idea. If you remember, there was a whole generation of Jews after they left Egypt. They were supposed to have gone directly into the land of Israel, and after they received the Torah, and they refused. The Jews refused. They wanted to stay in the desert for basically the same reason. They wanted to be close to God, and they knew that staying in the desert, they could learn Torah and they could be holy. And they come to the land of Israel, they're going to have to deal with all these physical problems and disturbances and distractions, and they didn't want that. And so they stayed in the desert, and they got that. They wanted to stay in the, and they got exactly what they wanted. God said, "Okay, you're going to stay in the desert." And that's why they had to wander for 40 years. So it's basically the same thing. Oh, let's go back to our topic. So here we go. Nadav and Avihu get burned up. It says that the fire came down from God and it went into their nostrils and burned them out, killed them from the inside. And so he says, God says, take them out. Oh, here we go. Take them out. Take them out of the. Al-Zaban says, Kirvu, say to Su, lift up your brothers from the holiest and to outside of the camp, so that they shouldn't disturb this happy day, that this is the day when God's presence is revealing itself in Israel. And they just saw this revelation of God, and they just went, they just wanted to get as close as possible, so they rushed in. Okay, we went into this yesterday. So it says, take them out. From here we learn that fire went into their nostrils and burned them. All right. Moshe said to Aaron and his sons, now we're going to have some laws. What does he say? Usually for a dead person, you let your hair grow, you don't get a haircut, and you tear your garments. It said, don't do it. Don't let your hair grow, and don't tear your garments. Why not? Because a Kohen is not allowed to, and we're going to go to those laws in just a minute. Here we're going to learn a lot of laws about Cohanim, the priests. It says, but don't think that it means that I don't want you to be sad about the death of these two great people, Nadav and Avihu. Kol Beis Yisrael yivku et hasreifah. Everyone else will cry. When we petach Ohel Moed, and from the entrance of the Ohel Moed, from the tabernacle, lo tetzu, don't go out because you'll die. Because you have been anointed with the oil of God. And they did what God said. Okay, so here we have another law. A Kohen is not allowed to serve if his hair is too long. He's not allowed to serve if his garments are torn. When he is serving, he's not allowed to leave in the middle of service. He can't go out of the place of, here it says the tent of meeting, but really it means also from the altar. The tent of meeting is where the menorah is and the golden altar, but they can't go outside of the whole entire tent structure all the time they're serving. When they're serving, as if it's their day to serve God, with the sacrifices, they're not allowed to go outside. But we'll see that later. We're gonna look in a book, Mitzvot HaShem, which we've been referring to regularly. So here we have three laws: the unkept hair and torn garments, and leaving the temple in the time that it's their time to serve. And God spoke to Aaron. Why would they want to go out? They might want to go out for a funeral, right? A funeral. There's one of their close relatives died. They're not allowed to. In the time of serving their service, they're not allowed to. Here's a few more laws. God said to Aaron, wine and alcoholic beverages, don't drink. It really doesn't mean alcoholic beverages, even though there is a prohibition, but it really means wine in a way of getting drunk. You shouldn't drink. You and your sons with you, when you come into the Ohel Moed, you come in to serve God, and you shouldn't die. Rashi says wine in a way of getting drunk. In other words, if he drinks vodka, it's not forbidden from the Torah. He's not supposed to do it. But he's not punishable by death. Death is only punishable if he drinks wine in a way of getting drunk. When you come into the Ohel Moed, when you come into the tent of meeting, like I said, the tent of meeting, that's in the what's called the holy, not where the big altar is. The big altar is that's not in the holy. The big altar, even though it's in the holy temple, but it's called in the Azorah. Oh, it says, it's forbidden to be drunk when they go into the Heichal, where the menorah, the 7-branched menorah is, and the face bread, and etc. When they're doing their main work, which the main work of the Cohanim is on the altar. That's where they burn up the sacrifice. How do you know there it's forbidden to be drunk? It says over here, Bia, coming to the Ohel Moed, and it says in the book of Exodus, when it talks about making the vessels in Parshas Truma, it says sanctifying your hands and your feet. It says over there, Bia. Just like over there, it's talking about going to the altar. You're not allowed to serve. The Cohanim are not allowed to serve in the altar. Also here, it talks about in the Ohel Moed, etc. So in other words, just like over there, it's talking about, I think it's true, maybe it's Parshas Tetzaveh. In any case, over there, where it's talking about making the vessels of the temple, so it says that there has to be a laver, a kior, and they have to wash with this kior their hands and their feet before they do any sort of service, even on the altar. And they use the word babia when you come in, and because that's called the gezerah shava. Just as you use this word boachem, come, it means not only into the Ohel Moed, but to do any service, just like it means over there with a labor. Why should you do this? To separate between the holy and the mundane, between the impure and between the pure. To tell the Jewish people the laws that God spoke in front of Moshe. Now here, there's also another law. Look, it says over here. No, yes, here. It's here, right? So he says you shouldn't get drunk to serve in the Cohanim can't get drunk to serve in the temple, and also lahorot, they can't get drunk if if someone asks them a law, they're not allowed to decide, give an opinion if they're drunk. And Rashi says, Lamada teaches you here, she'asar shikur, it's forbidden for a drunk person, not just a Kohen, but any judge, if he's drunk, he's not allowed to decide laws. Yochol yechayev misa, maybe a judge that decides laws if he's drunk is also punishable by death. It says, Ato benecha itcha, only the Kohanim below Tomuto. Kohanim, if they serve in the temple drunk, then the punishment is death. The Chachamim, but the rabbis, if they decide laws when they're drunk, the punishment, they are punished, but the punishment is not death. Okay, let's just do one more, and I want to go to this book of the Mitzvot HaShem. And because here we're going to be talking about certain sacrifices which were left over. They were in the middle of the service of the first day of the tabernacle. Right? When did Nadav and Avihu rush in? They rushed in on the first day that the tabernacle was open for business. The first day that they were making sacrifice. Now, what did happen with the first day that the tabernacle was open for making sacrifices? As there came the head of the tribe of Yehuda, Nachshon ben Aminadav. He was the one that jumped into the sea and split when the Yam Suf split. Nachshon ben Aminadav, and he brought his what's called his in the initiation, whatever the sacrifices. Chanukah Mizbeach. And after him came the other 11 tribes. 11 tribes. Of course, Levi didn't bring, but in his place, the tribe of Yosef has been split into two, Ephraim and Manasseh, so it came out to be 12. So every day for the 12 days are brought. But this is the first day. So they were in the middle of making all these sacrifices, and Nadav and Avihu rushed in, and they sort of disturbed the whole thing when they died. But now they had to carry on and continue the offerings, and that's what it's been talking about now, to continue making these offerings. And we'll talk about that in just one moment. Let's go back to some of the commandments that we learned from this tragic episode and the commandments which were given afterwards about the Kohanim, not forbidden to be drunk. Let's see, here we go. Here we go. Parsha Shemini. Right, this is a very excellent book. We talked about it before. Mitzvot HaShem, the commandments of God. Who wrote the book? I've already forgotten who wrote the book because it has different names written over here. Here is written by who? Halperin, Tzvi Hirsch Halperin. Written by Tzvi Hirsch Halperin. Even though it says over here it's written by Baruch Bencher. No, it's written by a man called Rav Tzvi. No, Rav. Yes, Baruch Bencher, that's his name. Rabbi Baruch Bencher. And the introduction is written by a person called Tzvi Halperin. Okay, Baruch Bencher. Here's the book. Excellent book. I think it's written in English also. Mitzvot HaShem. It lists all the 613 commandments according to the Rambam. There's different ways of reckoning what the 613 are. But according to this, the Rambam. Okay. Here we have this week's Torah portion reading. It's Parsha Shmini. It has 17 commandments. Vav Mitzvot HaShem 6 positive commandments. Yud Aleph 11 Mitzvot Lo Taseh negative commandments. And here they are. Number 1, the Cohanim, Lo Yikansu Cohanim, the Cohanim are not allowed. These are talking about Cohanim that are kosher to serve God. From the Mizbeach, and not all Cohanim can actually go in, but anyway, they are kosher, or kosher that's not impure. A kosher that's pure, he can't go in, Purui Rosh. He can't go in, what do I mean? If his hair is grown, long. Like it says, Roshechem al Tifro. Right? Aaron, God tells Aaron, tell your 2 sons, Elazar and Tamar, those are the only two Kohanim left. There's no more Kohanim, there were 4. Aaron was the Kohen Gadol, he was the high priest, and there was the 4 Kohanim with his 4 sons. So 2 of them got killed. He tells the others, a person that's in mourning is not allowed to get a haircut, but you must get your haircut. And if he does, a Kohen goes and serves in the Holy Temple, Migodol Sar with his hair long, Chayav Misa, he's punishable by death from the hand of heaven. Not by the court. But the service that he did do is still good. Service that he did is good, he just is punishable. But if he went and he didn't do any service of, didn't bring any meat to burn it up, or didn't do anything, so his punishment is not, he has transgressed the positive commandment, he's transgressed, but he doesn't get killed. Because you don't get killed, right? He didn't do anything. He's not allowed to serve with transgressed a negative commandment, I'm sorry, but he didn't serve. A Kohen Gadol, but if the high priest, he can't let his hair grow ever, even if he doesn't do any service, even if he doesn't even go into the temple. He's the holy prince. He can't. What does it mean? Long hair, going 30 days without a haircut. Every 30 days he has to get a haircut, and the haircut that he gets is a very special haircut. This isn't the time of course not nowadays, only the time of the temple. Kohanim are, yes, allowed to get the haircut nowadays. Negative commandment. I mean, once the temple comes down from heaven, Mashiach will bring the 3rd temple. Then from then on, right, the Kohanim are not allowed to leave their hair grow for 30 days. Those Kohanim that work, and the high priest, whoever that's going to be, I guess Aaron will come back from the dead. He'll be the high priest. Okay. Number 1 commandment, prohibition. Number 2, negative commandment. Kohanim are not allowed to enter the tabernacle, from the altar and inward. In other words, to throw the pieces of the sacrifice on the altar, and how much more so to go in to the what's called the tent of meeting. They're not allowed to go if their garments are torn. Like it says, your garments are not allowed to be torn. Even if it's a dead person, one of the relatives dies, they're not allowed to, and you're supposed to tear your garment, they're not allowed to do it. To serve in the temple. And if they do serve in the temple, for instance, tearing the garment for a dead person, so the punishment is death from heaven. But the service that they did, if they did do sacrifices or whatever with torn garments, what they did is kosher. It's okay. Any Kohen who is kosher to serve, if he goes in to the altar or inward from the altar, if he's drunk, which we're going to get to this thing about drunk, or if he has uncut hair or garments, or if he goes out of the temple, that's what we said before. like for instance, let's say he rips his garments when he's in the just approaching the altar, and if he goes out, he doesn't do anything. Then the punishment is lashes. He doesn't get killed, but he gets lashes. The Kohen Gadol, he never can have torn garments, even if he's outside in his house. He can't have. Also, even more, all Jews are forbidden to go into the Holy Temple. There's the big area where Jews are permissible to go in, but they can't go in. Everybody, no one, if they're drunk, or if their garments are torn, or if the hair is grown more than 30 days. That this is not honor for the Holy Temple. But he says, one second, only this 30-day thing is only if he grows it in an unkempt way. But a Jew that grows hair, a regular, normal Jew, a non-Kohen, that grows long hair just to look good, to be pleasant looking, and not in it's permissible to go in to the temple. Of course, not to overdo it, but if it's an honorable way, then it's okay. Okay, negative commandment. A Kohen, so what do we have so far? A Kohen is not allowed to leave the temple when he's serving. He's not allowed to have unkempt hair. He's not allowed to have torn garments. Number 4, prohibition. A Kohen is not allowed to go and serve if he's drunk. Remember, we just learned that in the Chumash. From the altar and inward. You know what it means from the altar and inward, right? We had pictures of it. We learned before. When you go into the Holy Temple, so the first thing that you see when you go in, you see the altar. The altar is very big, very imposing. Only the Cohanim can approach the altar. But that's the first thing you see. Then after that, there's a building. And in the building, that's what's called the tent of meeting, or the holy. And then, of course, there's the Holy of Holies. Only Cohanim can go into the holy. And into the Holy of Holies, only the high priest can go in once a year. Good. If a Kohen goes into the temple and from the outer altar and inward, if he's drunk, and we'll see what that means, then the punishment is death from heaven. Like it says, velo tamutu. It says clearly, don't go in drunk or you'll be dead. From this, we had some people say that was the sin of our own sons, that they were drunk. And if you remember, we learned from the Kli Yakar, etc., that meant that they were intoxicated with the love of God. It means that you have to drink, but you have to drink in a way of getting drunk. You have to drink 1 revit of wine. Revit is something like an ounce, something like that, of wine at once. And it has to be wine. And it has to be unmixed wine. I don't know if we have such a thing anymore. Used to be wine was tremendously powerful, that you could put 3 times as much water into the wine, and you could still make the blessing on wine of it. I don't think there exists such a thing anymore today. In any case, back then they had wine that was tremendously powerful, and if you drank 1 ounce of this wine, a revit, 1 ounce of this wine, unmixed with water, and it has to be wine, though, that it wasn't just freshly squeezed, and it's just grape juice, that you unmixed wine, but you let it ferment for 40 days. Or if you drank more than this revit, more than an ounce, even if it was mixed with water, and you didn't drink it at one time, but if it was more than a revit, it means that you drank it in order to get drunk, which a revit is a very small amount. And then, and you're a Kohen, and you served in the Holy Temple, the punishment is death from heaven. What if a person is drunk from something else? He drinks beer, or he drinks vodka or liquor or something, Arak. So the punishment is not death, but it is forbidden, and the punishment is lashes. But the work that he did, the sacrifices that he helped to burn on the altar, whatever, is there, it's good, it's kosher. Now the Cohanim, they were the servants of the people. The people would come with these various sacrifices, and they would sacrifice them. There were also sacrifices that the Cohanim did just for the holy temple, like the continual offering, etc. One sheep in the morning, one sheep in the evening, in the late afternoon. The first thing they did was a sheep, and the last thing they did, that was the continual offering that they. Also, it's forbidden for any Jew to decide a law when he's drunk. Even if he's drunk from other things, from Iraq or from vodka or beer, he's not allowed to decide laws. Even more than that, even if it's not an alcoholic beverage. It says that even if he drinks meat, I guess it's from dates. He ate dates or he drank milk. It has an effect on a person that it confuses the person. It confuses the person's mind. He's not, in other words, anything that he ate or drank that can confuse his mind a little bit, you're not allowed to judge according to the Torah, any laws. You're not allowed to. But if it's a simple law, he's really drunk. But if somebody asks him a simple law that everyone does it, even the Tzaddukim were troublemaker Jews, that they were very intelligent and very, very tremendously influential at one time. And they claimed that the rabbis were, you couldn't rely on the rabbis, that everybody is a rabbi. Everyone could decide their own laws. Everyone could decide their own laws, the tzaddukim. Everyone could decide whatever they wanted to, and you could make up, and they had their own interpretations. In any case, they didn't accept any of the rabbinical laws, the tzaddukim, but they did accept all of the obvious Torah laws. So any of the laws which the tzaddukim do, and they do just like us, and if you ask a question about that, then it's permissible. And it's permissible for a drunk person to learn Torah. But nevertheless, if the person is the rabbi that's in a town or whatever, then it's forbidden then he can't teach or learn, because his teaching and learning, this is an example, he's telling people what to do. So if you're a set person, you're not allowed to be drunk. It's forbidden for this prohibition to drink wine, the Cohanim in the temple. This is for the males, of course, and but the prohibition to decide laws or to be a judge when you're drunk, this is all places and anytime anyone that can decide laws is forbidden for him to be drunk. Next commandment, it is forbidden for the Kohen to go out of the holy temple in the time when he serves. Just 1 second, 1 moment, please. Yes, okay, so what do we have so far? A Kohanim cannot serve if their hair is longer than 30 days. A Kohen is not allowed to go with torn garments. A Kohen is not allowed to serve if he is drunk. A Kohen is not allowed to leave the tabernacle, the time when he is serving. Like it says, Pesach Oel Moed Lo Teitzu, and if he goes out, then the punishment is death from heaven. And this commandment is also repeated for the high priest elsewhere. Parshas Emor. Where is this? Parshas Emor. And Min Hamikdash Lo Yetzeh. What means that if a Kohen Gadol, the high priest, if someone of his family dies, one of his close relatives, his mother, his father, his sister, his brother, his son, his daughter, his wife, he's not allowed to go out and to the funeral procession. He can't leave the holy temple, and he can't go out of the holy temple. That's the high priest. Can't go out of the holy temple, and the regular priests, they can't go out in the time they're serving. Kalomer Yeshev v'Yavod Avoda, he has to just do the service that he's in, even though that he is in mourning. But and even though he's in mourning, the service that he does is still acceptable. What about a regular? Because that's a high priest. What about a regular Kohen? If somebody dies, Onan means someone died and he hasn't been buried yet. Essentially, it means someone died and the person has not been buried, and he's needed to arrange the burial. In any case, there's what's called an onan from the Torah. An onan from the Torah is a ninut from the rabbis is until the person is buried. Right? A person, God forbid, his mother or father passed away, so he is called an onan. Until the burial is called an onan. But from the Torah, he's an onan only until the nightfall. A regular priest, not the high priest, if he serves when he's onan, he's not supposed to serve, then he disqualifies any service that he's done. And he learns the whole way how you learn it, etc. How you learn these. Okay, those are the laws of the Kohen. Tomorrow we're going to learn interesting laws about what is a kosher animal, what's not a kosher animal. What's a kosher fish, what's not a kosher fish. What's a kosher bird, what's not a kosher bird. God willing, we'll learn about that tomorrow. But let's go back just briefly to the aftermath of the death of Nadav and Avihu. Here we go, one second. Vayedaber Hashem, Vayedaber Moshe el Aaron. Moses spoke to Aaron and to Elazar and Itamar, the remaining sons. What do you mean the remaining sons? I mean, we know that they're the remaining sons. What does it mean, remaining sons? Moses spoke to Elazar, Aaron, Elazar, and Itamar. That's all that was left, right? The two other sons, Nadav and Avihu, they were killed. We just read about that. Of course, these were the sons that remained. Rashi says, why is it telling that these were the sons that remained? Right? He's going to tell them to continue the service of the day. But let's see, why does he say the sons that remained from death? Malamed, this teaches us that really they also were punishable by death. Why? What did they do wrong? Avona Egel, because of the golden calf. That's what it says. We'll learn later on in the book of Deuteronomy that it says Moses is repeating to the Jewish people what happened in the 40 years that they were in the desert. Moses, this is right before the Jews entered into Israel without Moses. And Moses is saying to the Jewish people, remember that God got mad at Aaron. Hitnanaf Hashem. God got mad at Aaron. Me'od, very much. Lahashmido, to destroy him. This word hashmid, it means killing all of his children, his whole family. That's means lahashmid. Like it says, lashmid piryav mimal. There's a sentence in Prophet Amos. Hashmid means to destroy all the fruits. So why didn't God kill all of them? Right? God, first of all, God didn't kill any of them. Right? God waited. But tefillah shel Moshe batla. So Moses said, please have mercy don't kill them. And so that negated half. God said, okay, I won't kill all of the sons of Aaron. I'll kill only half. Like it says, Vespalel ba'ad Aaron ba'itahi. I prayed for Aaron at that time. In other words, Aaron was still left with two sons, and these were the two that were left. But that's why they're called Nosarim. They were left, they were remaining from the punishment that they should have received for the golden calf. Okay, so what does he say? Take the mincha that's left over from the fire of God and eat it matzot by the Mizbeach, because it's holy of holies. Again, what happened over here? There were all these sacrifices. They were right in the middle of making all these sacrifices. And when Nadav and Avihu were, they died, so that interrupted the whole thing. But now it also made a big problem, because now Aaron, who was the high priest, and his two brothers, who were regular priests, they are now mourners. And they're also called Onen. Their brothers, Nadav and Avihu, had not yet been buried. So what are the laws going to be that apply to this? This we'll talk about a little bit tomorrow. And we'll also discuss the, because it only happened one time. This is the first day of the inauguration of the temple, and they made special sacrifices for that day. And there were also regular sacrifices that they made, which they're going to make for the whole entire history of the tabernacle, the morning sacrifice, etc. The tamid. But there were special sacrifices that were made on this day. Like we said before, Nachshon ben Aminadav, he was the first of the 12 tribes, and he brought his special inauguration sacrifices. So that's also brought. But how are they going to sacrifice them? Who's going to do it? The only Cohanim are mourners, Aaron and his sons. So, and only the Cohanim can do the service. So what are they going to do? So that we'll talk about, God willing, tomorrow. So we learned some of the laws of the Cohanim, some of the restrictions of the Cohanim, the Kohen Gadol, as well, that came out from this tragic loss of the Jewish people of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu. Hope to see you all tomorrow, God willing. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Shalom Uvracha.